Hey everybody, you're listening to the Hisessions Hawaii podcast where we talk about everything local and beyond. I'm John Yamasato, your host. Joining me today is Kyle Shimabukuro.
How's it?
Devon Nekoba.
Howdy.
Before we begin, let me remind the listeners all the ways they can stay in touch with the show. There's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Hisessions. Go to SoundCloud, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, listen to the podcast, or you can email us at hisessions@yahoo.com. We are going to be doing a big Patreon push toward the end of the year. So if you would like to, we got the shirts coming out and all that stuff.
Oh, the shirts are cool, by the way.
Yeah, so if you want to support us, go to patreon.com and donate.
Show us shirt?
We'll do it on the next podcast. Or in the podcast
Or
in the
you
past.
want to run out and go get it?
No.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right.
All right. Real quick, want to thank Kupu Kupu Landscape Architects. Call Kevin Yokomura, 808-722-8685 for a free estimate. And of course, Fort Ruger Market with the wonderful food. I'll ask our guest in a second about it, but we should just introduce our guest. So our special guest today is Mr. Jai Cunningham from Jai on KITV News. He's been around. He's been a face in Hawaii forever. And you
but
did
he doesn't look it.
He doesn't look it. Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I think that's a compliment.
Yeah. And a stalwart here in Hawaii, but
Yes.
originally from Alabama.
The good old Alabama. Heart of Dixie.
How did you find your way
plate.
here? I was looking you up last night, and I'm like, I got to ask him about this.
The bravest woman I ever knew moved us out here, Linda Cunningham, back in 1986.
Okay.
And so I'm going to live in Hawaii, and it was the right time. She had two teenage sons who were, my brother, Devon knows, is bigger and stronger. So she had two teenage sons who could move her over here physically. And so she just said, please, just give me a year. And a year turned into, she's 36, 37 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was
So
she had a job offer or something?
She had retired.
Oh.
And she wanted to,
Oh.
and if you're going to retire and you're going to live somewhere,
Why not Hawaii?
why not Hawaii?
Yeah.
She was not only the strongest woman I'd ever met, but smartest woman I'd ever met too. So she didn't go wrong. So she ended up moving us over here. My brother's a Kalani grad. I had just graduated high school, so I graduated on the mainland. So
Okay.
Alabama born, Tennessee raised. I went to school.
Were you stoked to become Hawaii, or were you kind of apprehensive?
It was. I tell you what, because I made it. You want to hear about a mistake that was made early on? Should have made a phone call. This is the days before the internet, okay? 86. I assumed because we were going to live in Hawaii Kai that you would just go to Honolulu Community College.
Oh.
If I had made a phone call, I would have realized Kapiolani Community College would
Right
have been
there.
a much smarter move.
Yeah.
Right.
So the number one bus takes you all the way down Kalani'anale Highway, and eventually you end up down in Kalihi, and you end up at Honolulu Community College. It's a 1-hour bus ride. So I made a cardinal. It was a big mistake. I did a year because I wanted to help out the family. That was going to get me residency. But
okay.
if I could do it all over again, I would have made one phone call. And I would have found out that HCC, I love it, wonderful experience, but it was not the wisest geographical choice. But no, I loved it. I went to UH. I'm a proud UH grad. It took me a little more than 4 years. Go Hawaii, go Bows.
Go Bows, I guess, yeah.
It was a bad game this past weekend, but
It was a little painful.
I mean, and that's actually the thing, because you were in sports at a different station, and for a very long time, 20 plus years. But you were definitely one of the voices for UH and for that program and supporting it, right? And then so to be a graduate and then to be covering your
That's
team.
true, yeah. I didn't think about that.
What was that like for you?
It was a lot of fun because I literally was, when I first started in 92 dating myself, I was only a few years older. In 92, they had that great football team that won the WAC. Mm-hmm. So they had Michael Carter at quarterback. They had Travis Sims at the running back position.
Yeah. Jason Elam.
Ivan Jasper, Jason Elam, the greatest kicker maybe in college football history. They had a defense that was second to none. They had 3 defensive linemen that were all drafted. They had Ta'asi Faumui. They had Ma'atana Vasa, Junior Tongawai.
Who was the coach back then?
Bob Wagner.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an exceptional team. A lot of people talk about 07 and how great they were, and I don't want to take away from that. But the 92 team was pretty amazing, and I had just started in August. So literally my first sort of 10, 12 weeks of my career was covering this team that was winning every week. So it was really exciting. And you know what? It was more than just football because, don't know if people remember, but September 11th, 1992, Hurricane Iniki hit Kauai. I was out at the airport. And at the time, when you covered the football team, you could go out to the gates. I don't know if you guys remember that. You used to be able to go out to the gates
right.
and say goodbye to mom, dad, auntie, uncle,
right.
give them a hug, and then they
at
would
the
go
airport.
walking up the airport. You could literally go out to the gates.
Yeah, I remember that.
On that team, they had 2 Kauai boys. And by the time I got out there at 6 in the morning, they were flying off to play Air Force on the road. And by the time I got out there, it was pretty clear that Iniki was going to hit Kauai head on. No. And there were 2 football players on the team that were from Kauai. The long snapper, Deacon Hansen, and then the right tackle, or maybe left tackle, but he played tackle, was Kendall Gu. Both those boys, and I can remember them being on the payphone. That's another thing we don't remember. But remember, you had to put quarters in. You had to collect call. Kendall, and mom would be on the other end.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that. So it was right out of the gate. I got a chance to cover not just the football, but the real life sort of things when that hit. And I was had only been there. We were at the time, and I'll go ahead and say it because hopefully bosses don't hear. But KHON was the only station that had a morning show. We had just started one.
Oh.
And so with the Niki hitting in the morning, a lot of people woke up that September 11th to the alarms going off at like 5 in the morning and the sirens going off. And so that was one of the first, that's what woke me up because I thought I'd overslept trying to get out to see the football team off to play Air
Did those
Force.
players lose their homes?
They did. And it was heavy watching them on the phones because they didn't know what was going to happen. They knew that their home island was going to get slammed. And they didn't know what was going to become of mom and dad and their family and everything. And so there was a lot of tears shed. They ended up going up there. They beat Air Force Academy. And I remember the football score. It was 6-3. It was just a defensive game. And Jason Elam kicked 2 field goals. They ended up winning 6-3. Remember, that was the year the only team they lost to was San Diego State. They had this running back guy named Marshall Falk.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Whatever happened to that guy?
That guy.
He ran all over us. It was brutal, man.
That was the only thing we couldn't quite solve was, and for good reason, he's a Hall of Famer. So,
a lot of people had a hard time.
A lot of people had even in the pros, people had a hard time stopping Marshall Falk. So, that's how I got my start.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So when you got to community college, that was when you decided, okay, I think I'm going to do this broadcasting thing.
Not till I got to UH. So when I got to UH, I did the year did the year as if it was like some sort of prison sentence.
You had to
community
do
college.
your penance.
So I was like, okay, once I got residency, I'm like, okay, I'm going to UH.
Okay.
And I walked into a broadcast journalism class, 365, and I'm like, that's the guy's on TV. And it was Bob Hogue. He was teaching that semester.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, who ended up being my mentor. He ended up being my sports director for a number of years. So I would talk to him after. He was a sports nut like me. And then that's when I first thought, hey, maybe I could get paid to watch sports. Maybe I take after my mom, and I'm smarter than I think. So that was my thinking, was like, hey, I get to go to football games for free and get to watch high
you
school
were always
football.
a sports nut.
I was always a sports nut. I played everything in high school. I played football, I played basketball, and I would play baseball. So I kind of did it all. So I enjoyed it. I love watching sports.
And you're in Alabama.
I'm in Alabama.
Come on, sports.
And you got to make the decision, and
Yeah.
I'm Roll Tide. So, and I tell people, not the Nick Saban Roll Tide. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the 17 years, but I was Bear Bryant. So I remember back-to-back national championships in 78, 79. They won back-to-back national titles.
Yeah.
And on that team, just to let you guys know, a little bit of trivia, that 79 team, there was a boy from Hawaii that kicked for them. You guys ever eaten at Yummy's Barbecue?
Yeah.
Of course,
The owner of that is Peter Kim. Peter Kim kicked for the University of Alabama in
way.
1979.
Really? Wow.
The owner of Yummy's Barbecue. Yep.
I like
And he also
Yummy's
owns Little Joe's
barbecue.
Steakhouse, and he owns Signature. Peter is an Alabama. Get him started about Alabama football. I don't know if you remember, years ago down at Ala Moana, they had Bear's Cafe.
Yeah.
And that was him. That Bear was Paul Bear Bryant.
Wow.
So he's a
I had no
Kaiser
idea.
boy in the late 70s.
Yeah.
So you had Rich Miano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Kaiser, you had Boyd Yap. They ended up winning a state championship or Wahoo Prep Bowl at the time. He was at UH, and he told Dick Tomey, Coach, and with his Korean accent, if you ever talk to Peter, he's still got it. He says, I'm going to go kick for Alabama. Dick Tomey told him, this is 78, 79, and Alabama had only integrated their football team like in 72, 73
Right.
to have their first black athlete on their football team. And so Dick Tomey told him, you're crazy, Peter. So he loaded up his suitcase and went to Alabama, and he ended up making the team and kicking for them.
Wow,
He's a national champion.
Somebody should do a story about that.
I think it's a made-for-television movie.
Yeah.
I really do. The parents migrated from South Korea, He still speaks with an accent, and he's gone on to not just success on the football field, but now he's an entrepreneur in business.
Yeah. Those little Joes and leaving bakeries.
Yeah.
And
He has the right
everywhere.
attitude to be an entrepreneur for a guy that's going to go to a different state and just...
You cannot tell him no.
Right.
He's just not going to
He's
have
gonna
it.
do it.
He's, you know what, and it's really great. It's funny because when I grew up, I wanted to be 42, and that was Major Ogilvy. That was a running back when they had the wishbone. He tells me, I know Major Ogilvy. He's an accountant in Birmingham. Do you want to meet him? And I said, no.
What?
I didn't want to meet him.
Why?
Because
You
the
don't
hip
meet your-
pads, you don't want to meet your hero. Because you know what? I don't want to meet Major Ogilvy, and maybe he's 5'9", and he's got a pot belly, and he's bald headed.
I remember him how he was.
That's not Major Ogilvy. He had the hip pads, the flaring hip pads and the tearaway jersey. I just want to remember that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's kind of like you don't want to pull Santa Claus's beard.
Plus,
you know?
he might be an asshole.
I doubt it though.
Just in case.
But remember, Texas had a quarterback named Major Applewhite. He was named after Major Ogilvy. That's how he got named.
Oh, interesting.
I told you guys I've got a lot of trivia in here. There's not much else going on, but there's all kinds of trivia.
What comes up to all of you guys, because I don't follow UH sports as hard as you do, but what does it take to get a winning football team here? Like I'm sure if people knew that, they'd be...
It's just different right now, the climate.
It's hard. Well, you're seeing it just in major college football. This whole transfer portal has thrown everything off because
And
now
NILs.
Guys just go in, they do one season, then they go, okay, I'm out.
my understanding is, and I've not seen it or heard it firsthand, but apparently a lot of these young people are like, how much can you pay me?
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's
is
not.
that what it's coming down
not
to?
okay.
The NIL
You
thing
can
has
get
been
me into the
crazy.
pros. You can get me an education. You guys have a great business school, or I want to be a dentist someday. It's just how much can you pay me? Because USC says they can pay me $3 million.
And that's that recent change that allowed us to...
Yeah, the NIL.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's hard. I mean, I think when it comes to football, which is sort of the big 450-pound gorilla here, right? I mean, it's such a huge thing in high school football. June has the right system because you need to win your state when it comes to recruiting. And it's hard to win your state with kids who are 5'10" and weigh 180 pounds. There's not a lot of positions for them. But if you run and shoot, there's room for the 5'10", 6 foot tall, 190 pound slot back wide receiver. You're not going to find the 6'4", 220 kid here that's a receiver. They come few and far between, but you're just not going to find it. So it's best to try to build a system that works for your local kids.
Well, I mean, Coach Timmy is from that system, obviously, right?
He
so,
prime example.
I mean, is it more a matter of him recruiting? Sorry, Coach, but I mean, recruiting better those people for his system, because he's tried to. It seems like over the few years that I've seen it, like he's sort of tried to morph it a little bit so that it's not complete run and shoot and it's not complete pistol. I mean, kind of like what he was doing in Nevada, right, where it's sort of an amalgamation of things.
It's tough over here because then the kids you do want to stay over here that can compete at say Oregons and places like that, you're gonna have a hard time keeping them because that 6'4", 300-pound defensive lineman is going to go to Oregon because he's probably going to have a better shot at playing there 2 or 3 years and then going pro.
Because, I mean, let's look at when you're living in Alabama.
Yep.
The hometown heroes stayed there, right?
They did. And that's the thing. If you look at most
Mm-hmm.
successful programs, they win their state. And Coach Jones used to say that a lot, was win the state. You needed to – and he did that with Timmy Chang, with keeping guys like that around.
Yeah.
When you're able to win that, when you're able to win the those really talented athletes that are your Gatorade Player of the Year, if you can keep them, that's a huge advantage.
But you said, like, I mean, NIL has really NIL.
Nick Saban is
portal.
watching now. He's a color commentator. He sits on set now because he couldn't do it. And if the greatest coach in college football history can't do it, that says a lot about where they are. He said his wife, Miss Terry, just told him, "What are we doing?" Because they're not here to get better. They're not here they're here for money.
How do you feel about the whole Deion Sanders thing?
I don't know what to make of Deion because I get what he's saying at times. Because I always had a hard time with Deion because he was so much image, and I didn't know how much of it was real. You know what I mean? He's such a showman.
Yeah.
I don't doubt because when he played, it was
he was
like
good.
Yeah, he was good.
yeah.
He
He
did
just shut
stuff.
the corner. Yeah.
When he would take a punt and run it back, it's like he's playing against the greatest football players on the planet. So he's obviously got immense talent. I think for guys like him, it's hard because I think a lot of people, he's very, he's sort of polarizing.
Yeah.
So I think, and when I got into television, that's the thing they say is that sort of X factor, if you will. And there's some sort of a marketing terminology where you're literally, they would rather you be that than to be, what do you think of Jack Cunningham? He's okay. That's the kiss of death. But we talk about someone who had a very strong, so when you talk about this market, Joe Moore has that. There are a lot of people who love him and can't miss one thing that he says or does. And there are a lot of people who do not like it. There's not a lot of in between. It's either love or don't love.
Yeah. Music is the same way like that
Right?
too. Yeah.
That you really either get it or you don't get it. And so I think Dion's like that. I think a lot of people love him. And the fact that Warren Sapp is working on a staff and, you got these pro players hanging around.
You think it's a positive thing for college football future?
I think it is. It's going to be fascinating to see. I don't know that Colorado can hang on to him because he's, one of those big schools that can pay him $5 or $6, $8 million a year is going to do that. So he's going to end up somewhere else. It's just what school's going to pull the trigger on that.
But is he looking for money, or he's looking to just play his kids and watching his kids make all the money?
Yeah. Well, and I heard an interesting thing where what if the Dallas Cowboys took the pair of them? What if they took the son at quarterback, and what if they took him and it was a package deal?
Wow.
That would be interesting.
After watching last night, they need something. Look, I don't want to. I know we have a ton of Cowboys fans, not just here in the islands, but around the world. They really are, marketing-wise, America's team.
Yeah.
But that squad needs help in a big way. They are not a good
Who
football
did they
team.
play this week?
They played the Texans last night and got
The Texans just kicked the little
What is their
crap out
record
of them.
right now this season?
They only got 3 or 4 wins.
Yeah,
they're like
it's
4 and 7,
they're
4 and
like
8.
3 and 8 or
3 and 8.
something.
They're
Yeah.
not
Jesus.
good. They're not good.
Well, and then Dak went
But every
down.
year
and
I
Dak-
hear that too.
So, and
No,
then
but they
here's-
they kind of had chance. Like they weren't
Yeah,
playing that
yeah.
good, and then Dak went down. And as soon as he went down, it's like, but it's like you front load your team with all these guys that are really good, and everybody underneath is sort of scrubs. So as long as those guys play, you're good. But as soon as you lose 2 or 3 of those guys, you're screwed. And that seems to be the way the NFL is. There's no next man up. Like the next man isn't as good.
I'm going to say something, and Cowboys fans, if you disagree with this, it's Devon Nekoba. But you know what the problem is? I'm going to be real honest. And if you're really, truly a Cowboys fan, the problem with that team is the owner.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
he's
he gets
making
way
all the
too involved.
decisions,
Yeah.
and he doesn't listen to anyone.
Yeah.
And if he's going to make all the decisions and he makes bad decisions, you're going to be a bad football team.
Is he too
It's that
old
simple.
school?
I just think he.
That's
I
not an
don't
old
think
school
he.
thing. It's an
I just
ego
don't
thing
think
for
he. Yeah, and if I owned a $4 or $5 billion team, he bought it for whatever, and now it's probably the most expensive pro team in
is,
football.
yeah, it is.
Although the ceiling was falling apart last night too. That Jerry Dome is only like 10, 12, 14 years old,
Yeah.
and parts of it are falling down.
Yeah.
That's from a Tyson fight, though, right?
He was that heavy-footed that I didn't realize. When I saw it Friday night, they didn't do a lot of close-up stuff. And then when I saw some of the thing a day later, Mike Tyson looked like he had been in a car accident. When he walked back to the corner,
Yeah.
he looked like he looked like a basketball player with an injured knee.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why they shot the damn thing so far away. They didn't want to show you how beaten and old he looked. And if you saw him from 10, 15 feet away, you're like, what is he doing in the ring? Because he looked terrible.
Well, how do you justify watching him train, though? All his training footage, was it sped up?
So you know what? So there's a young man that works for us, this my producer, and he's fought a couple times MMA. Now, not like UFC, but fought.
Yeah,
so he
yeah.
understands. So the reason they did the 2-minute rounds was to help Tyson out.
Yeah.
Because the standard one is 5 minutes.
And the gloves.
And the gloves. Because he says, and I fell for it like a lot of people did. Everything you saw of Tyson training was like 30 seconds long.
Mm-hmm.
So for 20, 30 seconds, he looked explosive.
Yeah.
But what did he look like a minute later if he was to keep doing that? And that's what we saw that night. He came out, and for about 20 seconds of that first round, he threw a couple of big ones. And then all of a sudden, at about 30 seconds, you're like, what's happening? What? And it happened like that every round. But even after the second round, it looked like he didn't have that 30 seconds anymore, like at all, no matter where it was.
You think that fight was real and not fixed?
I think it was real. I think the only thing that was maybe sort of fixed was Jake Paul could have knocked him out, and he didn't.
Yeah.
I think he was
you
nice.
You got to give him credit for that, too.
I think he was nice in that. I think he knew what good does it do to knock this old man out.
Yeah.
It really doesn't do him any good. But
Yeah.
if he's gracious in victory, it helps his image. It helps him marketing-wise.
He was super gracious. I was tripping out. He was
was-
like, "Thank you to the fans and the military," and I'm like, who's this guy? I've never heard him say any of
It
this
was
stuff.
fascinating.
And he's giving
son-
all his props to Mike Tyson, and I'm like, who are you,
You're
man?
right about that training, though. I think that's what
I
led me
just-
to believe that. I was like, is this fixed? Because I saw him
Because-
train super
Well,
hard,
yeah.
and fast.
And when you think about it, you were only seeing 30-second
Yeah.
clips.
Yeah.
And he did look like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
if I could do that at that age. And he looked hulkish, right? I mean, his shoulders were
Yeah.
still those Tyson shoulders. And then he was ducking and moving, and you're like, whoa, because he used to do stuff. You're like, man, he looks like a thoroughbred.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the four of us remember what it was like to watch Mike Tyson when he was scary as hell.
Yeah.
Like, you'd
Yeah.
watch him knock people out and go, oh my God, I think he killed that guy.
Yeah.
Or what was it, Michael Spinks? When it looked like Michael Spinks went, huh. He was just like, no, he's going to hit me again.
You're like,
Remember
wow.
he made Larry Holmes barf?
Michael Spinks' eyes were completely white.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? Same. It's when we talk about all the sports legends, right? You don't remember Michael Jordan and number 45 wearing a Washington Bullets uniform. You
No.
remember
Right,
him
right,
jumping
right.
in the air
No.
Yeah.
with the
No.
23 on, with the red and black.
Yeah.
So and that's the same way with Brady or with these other guys. Brady, a little different because he won at Tampa Bay, but you still remember it's the Major Ogilvy thing, right? I don't want to see the accountant who's doesn't have hair anymore, and like you're not Major Ogilvy, like you're supposed to be 6'5"
Larger than life,
and
yeah.
bigger.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be like a cartoon figure, and so I think that kind of happened with Tyson. Like a lot of people, and you know what? He's become kind of lovable, right? He was
Yeah,
kind of a,
totally.
Yeah.
He was kind of
Totally.
there was a period there where he was just not nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
easy, kind of like, you get what you deserve.
Yeah.
You got prison time because you're a bad person.
Yeah.
But then, he's kind of reinvented himself. The
We had the one-man show. He was on The Hangover.
The Hangover
we
was-
all went.
Yeah.
We all went.
It's also heavy marijuana and mushrooms.
yeah,
You know?
medicated, a little medication
Playing so
going on.
chill,
But he was in Hangover, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think
It's a good
people,
cameo.
now I think it's easier. I mean, I think America loves a comeback story, right? They want to cheer for, there are those people who have been down and out. You've had it in your families, you've had it in sports, you've had it in business, and people who make comebacks. I think Americans love that because they like a comeback
I wanted
story.
to see him knock Jake
There-
out.
there
I
was
did
no
too,
way,
and
man.
I just thought if he could put 30 seconds together, because I thought Jake Paul had never been hit by someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought if
Yeah.
he hits him with a Mike Tyson punch, it's gonna go. You're gonna be like, what?
But there's
hit me?
video footage in the first round of opportunity that he didn't take. And they're saying, okay, did he pull back or was it his knee that was the problem where he couldn't get enough leverage to put the power?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just weird. You know?
I don't. I just think. I think he's an old. I mean, was it Mark Jackson who does color for the NBA? Always says this, and I'm like, it's pretty darn accurate. Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Never been beaten. Never been defeated. You know what I mean?
You got to think, like, I'm in my 40s, and yeah, I can barely walk up the stairs. I know he's
Devin and I were talking about this. You do not look a day over 62. 63.
Thank you.
That's what I was
appreciate
putting him at. I was like 62, 63.
Yeah.
You know what a razor is? You ever used a razor?
But-
Trust me, when he lets it all go.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
No,
it's-
it's not that bad. Actually, it's still.
This
was
dude
gonna
is
say-
10 years younger than us. So we
Yeah.
always look at him as
Well,
this,
and then
this,
so
this
yeah, my
young
son,
kid,
kid,
my,
you know?
my son
Like,
got sucked into the hype of that Tyson-Paul
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of people did.
Yeah.
You know, he's
So
like,
much so
"Oh."
we crashed the site.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right.
Exactly, yeah.
And so he's like, "Do you want to watch?" I'm like, "I'll sit in another room because I know what's going to happen already. This guy's not going to be." I told him, I'm like, "I love Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was like one of my favorite fighters back in the day." You know, I'm like, but he's 58 years old, man. Like, he's not gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know what I
just kept
found?
I thought it was going to be like, I was hoping it was going to be like George Foreman, right? Foreman came back when he was
Yeah.
45. Everybody
he-
thought there is
the-
no way. And then he's knocking people out and he's super funny.
The
And
power
he's
stays,
selling
but-
grills and everything. And I went,
Yeah.
all right. And then, but even he
Well, and you
he
don't-
reached the point where he could fight.
Well, you don't realize mid-40s how different that is. You know, when you look at a 20-year-old athlete, like in college sometimes, Alabama's got a 17-year-old kid that's a really dynamic wide receiver, but he's 17.
Yeah.
In another 5 or 10 years, the difference in your body, you know, when you're 27, you're so much physically more, you're larger and you're just in better shape. And I think on the back end, you've had grandparents or uncles and aunties and you haven't seen them in 6 months and you're like, when did you start limping? You know, like you
Yeah.
haven't seen him and all of a sudden at Christmas, you know, grandpa's got a walker or he's using a cane and you're kind of like, when did that happen?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Getting old
But
is
you
a
know what's
bitch.
interesting? My oldest daughter, we have an account And she ended up logging on. So they must have had something happen at her school. So she ended up logging on to see at Netflix to see the fight. And I know she's not. So then I'm like, who is she with? And I'm like, because I know she didn't know who.
Is she in
those
college
two-
now?
She's both my girls are in college, bro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Where schools are they at?
Okay, so I'm gonna wait and tell you the 22 because it's gonna blow your guys' mind.
Okay.
The 20-year-old is in Loughborough, England.
What, the 22 is
Whoa.
HCC?
No,
This is in Japan.
the 22-year-old is what we call a firstie. A firstie is a senior at the United States Military Academy at West Point.
That's
Oh.
awesome. Wow. Congratulations.
She's in Washington, D.C. right now with the Law and Philosophy program. She's in the honors program. And so
Awesome.
yesterday they were at the Supreme Court. So you know what? Sports trivia for you. They got a basketball court at the Supreme Court. Do you know what its nickname is?
What?
The Obama
The highest court in the land. So yeah, she does that. That's where
That's
the girls
awesome.
are.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
we're going up in 5 months. She'll be graduating. And then she'll be commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know.
Congratulations.
Obviously, she gets all of it from mom.
I know. Right? We always got to credit mom.
Your mom's the smart one, so she gets it from there.
So is your? I think I've met your wife, but she's from here?
She's from here. Mililani girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys met while you were in college, or?
Right after, I blame Tony Gaston.
What?
'Cause Tony was a buddy of mine. So you know when you're single and you got that group of guys, you know, and it's Friday night and that's like your running buddies kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we kept seeing Carla had her two friends, and we kept coming across each other every Friday night. And then he knew her because he was a Mililani grad, a couple 3 years older than her. And then he would always say, he always called her Valdez. That's her maiden name. So then I would always be like, who is that girl? And he would go in the back. This was at Gordon Biersch.
Oh, my
wow,
God.
okay.
Back in the
Yeah,
day.
throwing you a loop
Yeah,
there.
right.
Huh?
Lois
So we'd
Howard.
sit up in the front where all the big old vats of beer were, and they would be in the back where the live music was. So then her friend Sherry Yasuhara, third Friday night when she
Sounds
saw
like a
she
Mililani High School name right
That
there.
is-
comes
yeah,
up, and Sherry's like,
Yeah.
you know what? We're not here for our looks, yeah? So don't you guys come in the back and listen to music with us? And so I was like, okay. So that's
Oh,
how we
wow.
met.
So
That's how we met.
this is when you're going to UH.
Just out of UH.
What year was that?
So I met her probably in like 93 or 4. We've been married 27
Wait,
years.
Gordon Biersch
wow.
still exists, right?
No.
No, it's
No.
gone.
It's been gone.
It's like
Just
a
hang
long
it.
park.
The whole
Yeah.
company went down.
Yeah.
The whole Aloha Tower is way different than it used to be.
Yeah, that place
yeah.
used to be fun.
Yeah, it used to have Sloppy Joes
Yeah.
and it had all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff going on there.
Now all the students are there.
You know, we were probably all around the same time doing the same things. That's the Super Rooters and all
It's-
that stuff.
it's
I
funny
was
when-
gonna say
yeah.
at least his meetup story is a place that still exists, but
All our stories are kind of that similar
Yeah.
that way.
Nothing exists anymore that we can remember.
Because
you know?
how many Thursdays were we probably all at Moose's
Oh,
on
I was there.
University?
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
bumped
yeah.
into each other.
Guarantee.
We may not remember it, but we bumped
yeah,
into
Yeah.
each other.
probably.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
either drinking one of those Long Island iced teas
Yeah.
or one of those Hurricanes
Yeah.
for like $2 or whatever we were
And
paying for
dreading
it.
to go to that bathroom because it was so gross.
And it was, you couldn't even walk. Talk about a fire hazard. It was shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And if you need to go to the bathroom, you had to make a decision like 45 minutes out because it was
Right,
going to take
right,
you
right,
that
right,
long to
right,
get to the back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. It was just, I don't know how big the place was, but it had to have 300 or 400 people in on a Thursday night.
It was crazy. I used to be there every Thursday. And before I had the VIP pass to get us in the front, I was standing in that line in the rain.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Waiting for that big bounce
Moose
named Ernie to
McGillicuddy's
let
turned
me
into
in.
liquid. That turned into liquid surf then, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then
then
Sharks. Back then was Sharks Cafe too.
So that's where,
Okay.
and Devon knows my brother used to be a bouncer over there.
Oh, really?
He used to be a bouncer at Bobby McGee's. That's how far
Oh,
back
wow.
we go.
Probably.
And
Would
now,
recognize him if
and
I see
now
him.
he's a retired police officer.
Really?
He retired a year ago.
Oh,
He put in
wow.
26 years with Las Vegas Metro, and he retired at 52.
Wow.
We did the wrong thing. Well,
Yeah, well-
looking at our physiques, no, probably
Yeah, no,
not.
I don't think we could have
We're-
done it.
We're not 5'11", 280 pounds of solid. So yeah, he's a retired police officer now.
Wow.
Living in Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Now what is he doing?
Oh,
Because
Klamath Falls,
a
love
lot
it.
of those guys they retire, but then they do something.
Was he
or- and they-
HPD though, or
No, He moved up there like in '92 to Vegas.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he was part of the initial wave
Oh,
of Ninth Island
Vegas.
people. Yeah.
Oh.
So he
Must
lived
have
in
been
Henderson,
interesting.
where everybody else
Henderson,
lives.
yeah.
where
Everybody's there.
Everybody's got family members there, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like,
Right.
oh yeah, my cousin lives there, and his brother, and all that sort of, you know. He lived up there, and since like '92 or '3, he moved up there.
Oh, okay.
And then he just moved a year ago. He retired. He did the school security thing for about a year.
Okay.
And then he wasn't feeling it. So
you're just kind of cruising.
and they got a pretty good pension and everything. So he's like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, so you're not going to work the rest of your life? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, you suck. You suck. I'm 2 years older
He
than
needs a
him.
hobby though. What does he do for a hobby?
Yeah. He'll find something, I'm sure.
I don't know.
Oh,
Well,
man.
he's
Well, if he doesn't have to, he just won't.
well, he's
Just
got a
sit
new
around.
girlfriend, and
Oh.
she likes
Oh.
to like do the kayaking thing.
Oh, there you go.
You know, they got all
Oh.
kinds of lakes up in
Yeah,
Oregon.
yeah.
Although right now
Is she
he-
really young or something? Because she likes to.
No, so she's in a similar place as him with adult
okay.
children and in their 50s and
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Good.
Oh,
They're
that's
enjoying
good.
life.
Yeah, but he sent
them.
me
That really
he sent-
sucks, though. Yeah, for you. I'm sorry.
It's terrible because I'm thinking
Here we are.
Shay's in Loughborough for I don't know how many years. It seems like she's milking it, and so I don't know if it's going to be like a 6-year college experience or what. But we're having to try to like, come on, we got
Anytime,
to
you're
wrap this
ready.
thing up. This is the 3rd year. We got to figure out: are we going to be a nurse practitioner? Are we going to be a physician assistant? What's the deal here? And then the oldest one wants to be a lawyer.
Okay.
Oh.
No, that tracks.
So
I took 6 years, so I can't really say anything.
Devin was like, what, 10? 9? 10?
I tried. I had to get out of this.
He
He
did
did
two different-
He did
after a
two
while.
different
Yeah.
5-year sessions. That was his graduate plan.
Yeah.
No, I went to Gonzaga, and Father Sicanolfi was my advisor. And the first thing he said when he looked at my grades, he goes, "How the hell did you get into this school?" And then he said, "We need to get you out in 4 years, huh?" And I said,
Oh.
"Yeah." And he like basically mapped out my entire thing. and went,
Oh.
These are the classes you take.
So
this
is
is
that
the order
your-
that you take them in.
You majored in basket weaving or something?
I
or-
tried to, but that was too hard. So I
Did he
majored
say,
in public
did he say we need to
relations,
get
so-
you out of here as fast as possible because they're going to figure out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're gonna, I don't know.
They'll know.
So the little one, Shay, was in Vancouver. So when I say it's been 3 different colleges, she was in Vancouver. So her friend Allie and Amber both are at Gonzaga.
Oh, okay.
And so she went to visit them, and she took the cheap route. So she went by bus. And when you start in Seattle and you go all the way across the state of Washington,
It's crazy.
she's
On a
and it
bus.
was not one of those express things.
Yeah,
It
it's like a
stopped every
6
20
hours,
minutes.
7 years. Like a
Oh,
She
six
said it was
God.
horrible.
Yeah.
And then she got there, and so just because whenever the kids are somewhere, the phone's so easy, I'd love to see the town they're in just to see what the weather's like. It's freaking cold there.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And it's not like kind of cold. I would
It's
look every day and I'm like,
snowy,
it's
icy
18
cold, yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's snow and there's ice and
Oh,
there's
it looked terrible.
Yeah.
And then Shay told me it's too small. She didn't like it because
yeah,
it was small.
it's interesting. My daughter's in Seattle, and she actually
Oh.
said the same thing. And I actually thought
Devin was pushing hard on the
this,
You're trying to get
yeah,
Gonzaga.
I thought the smallness of the school would actually be helpful for her. Not because she would not have anything to do in study, but because there's you get a really strong community. Like you find your
Yeah.
people really quick. Because one of the other places she was thinking about was UW, and UW is gigantic.
Yeah, no.
They're like, you'll find your people. I'm like, you're not gonna find anybody at UW.
That's what I
'Cause they
always-
go, look at our beautiful school. Look at this library that's like Harry Potter. Wouldn't you like to go here? Yeah, that's $80,000, please. We're like, no, we're not doing that.
That's
No.
what I worried about too, because it's easy if you are not really proactive
Yeah.
at big schools like that, you can get totally blitzed. Because
Yep.
if you're not really in touch with your coordinator and with your your counselor, all of a sudden 2 years have gone by and you've not gotten anything done, and you're just kind of being quiet. So I like the
Yeah,
idea
Kyle.
of a smaller schools. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Did you dorm on UH?
I never did dorm. Thank God. I did enough dorming on Friday and Saturday night, just staying up there. Why? What's in this bottle? I don't know. Okay.
So that's Kyle's.
So
like,
yeah,
I was,
it may have
the
been.
one that crashed the dorm parties, but I never dormed.
Everybody thinks he went to UH, and he actually didn't. But he was at UH
He was at the
so
UH
much
dorms.
that it looked like he graduated from UH.
Yeah, no, I was there, and you know what's funny? Because I was there about the same time. A lot of people always thought I was Jason Elam.
Really?
Because
wow.
he's from right outside Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
He's from Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And so it was only about 2 hour drive away. And so Jason and I would talk all the time. And I guess we kind of looked alike. Well, the funny thing is, and Devin can attest to this, when you're in television, I've had so many people think that I'm Dan Meisensall.
Really?
And Dan has had the same, because we're both Howley guys. And they're like, and I'm like, no, but we don't look anything
Nothing
alike.
at all.
Nothing
Yeah.
alike.
Yeah.
And Dan's from Boston.
Yeah.
He's like, from Boston. and he tells me that, and I'm like, I get a lot of that too. He goes, so many people say, hey, Jai Cunningham. And I'm like, no, that's the other Howler guy. So it's in trouble when I get confused with John Veneri. Then you're like,
wow.
Yeah.
No,
You
I
can
don't
take
look anything
offense
like
to
Johnny
that one,
Veneri. John's too
Well,
handsome.
What I thought was really cool about the time that you came up in with sports was really a heyday. Because and I relate to it only because when I was doing radio, it was sort of that same time where it wasn't a fame thing. It was just that we happened to be around. The people around us were amazing. The training system that you were in to learn how to do this art.
Yeah.
The people were there. Because now, I mean, you and I have talked about this before, but now, not so much. Now they go, oh, you just got out of school. Okay, here's a camera.
Go for it.
Go down there and shoot this thing, and then edit everything and bring it back. And you go, wait, what? And when we were coming up, it was, okay, here's how you do it. So, I mean, you were talking about Bob Hogue. I mean,
And, dude, one of the greatest things I got to do was I would do general remembrances. So Les Kiter, the general, was at the station towards at the end of his career. And I would march him into the audio booth. And I would literally give him the script. And I would close the door. I'd hit the record play on the 3/4 deck. And I would tell him, go ahead. And the door was this flimsy little piece of glass, but I could hear this booming voice on the other side. It was the coolest to be. I was interning. I was 21, 22 years old, and I was listening to this unbelievable voice with this unbelievable historical. I mean, he did radio in the '68 Olympics in Mexico City with Jesse Owens beside him as color. Think about that as his color analyst.
It's crazy.
And so getting to talk to guys like that, it was just remarkable. And I was at home one night watching HBO, and it was on Sonny Liston, who Muhammad Ali knocked out in Miami. He changed his name, and the next night he won one of the greatest runs in heavyweight history started. And it was on Sonny Liston, who a lot of people don't know was one of the great heavyweights ever. Mm-hmm. He returns to Philadelphia, his hometown, and it's the general, and he's wearing like a fedora, and he's on the tarmac when Sonny Liston comes down. And he goes, and now we're talking to the world champion, and I'm like,
wow,
it's Les, and he's wearing a fedora with like a overcoat, and he looked sharp, and I was like, and he had hair, and I was just like, wow, look at Les. And I told him, and he goes, yeah, kid, I was back in Philly back in the day, and I was just like, wow, that's amazing. So you're right. Some of those guys,
but to be able to soak all that kind of stuff in, I mean, and the fact that you had the presence of mind to go, I gotta like put a pin in this so I remember some of this stuff.
Yeah, he was remarkable.
That's really cool.
He was remarkable. He recreated baseball games that would be fed teletype to him from whatever stadium, Chicago Cubs against the whoever, and he would recreate it here, and he would use like
the crack of the bat.
Yeah, the crack of the bat and stuff. Boom, off the wall was his call. Yeah, he used to recreate just from like a ticker. He would have to come up with the story, even though it was just like a single to center field. He had to make it a scorching single to center field, and just in his mind, just the creativity to come up with, like you were watching the baseball game. Damn. I mean, it's hard to believe, but when I started in '92, on Monday Night Football, you used to tell people, close your eyes because here comes that score. Because it was delayed.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Now, young people don't understand. Like, no, we used to have to wait until 6:30, 7 o'clock to watch stuff that had already aired 6 hours earlier.
Yeah.
And then you tell people, okay, that score is no longer posted. And people could open their eyes again.
I remember that vividly.
Isn't that crazy?
Like,
when you do that, you're like,
oh my God.
we used to tell people to stop watching our show live, and now you can start watching again. Right? It was just like, now with everything is so right now. Like if a game's going to start at 1 o'clock Hawaii time, the Tyson fight the other night, and we're watching on everything was, we were one of the ones who couldn't see it. So we went from like a big 55-inch screen down to a tiny little screen. All 7 of us were gathered around it. We're like, it looked like the fireside chats or something. It was like we're all gathered around the radio, we're listening to.
Well, did you have that scroll too?
We had that, and that's why, like I said, I don't know. Kara got on, and I'm like, so then we think there might be a boy involved because there's no way this girl cared about the fight. So we're thinking, we're like, she's 22.
Out of college, there's probably other people talking about it around her.
Well, she says the odds are good because there's 4,000 cadets at the school, and only 25% are female. So 1 in 4 are female. So you got 3,000 young cadets, and they're all, Captain Americas.
Yeah, right.
They're the star high school football quarterback.
But I wonder if it's hard for her because she might be able to order them around later on, or she could kick their
So
ass.
some of the interesting thing is they have non-commissioned officers, NCOs, who are there to give them real-life practical experience, who've been in the Army for 20, 25 years. Technically, she outranks them, even now as a cadet.
Really?
So she's active military.
Yeah.
The only thing that a cadet at West Point or a midshipman at Annapolis at the Naval Academy or an airman at U.S. Air Force Academy, the only thing is they cannot be deployed. That's the only thing. But otherwise, they are full-on. They are active military members. So it's great. She gets to go all the great surf spots. When she comes to Oahu, she goes to Marine Corps Base Hawaii.
Yeah,
She gets
yeah.
all these secret hideaway
Yeah.
places, and she doesn't have to like sneak on. She just shows her cat card or whatever it is, and she gets on any base in America. So she's like thrilled.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So her friends are like, Kara's awesome. She gets to go to such and such beach. They got great beaches over there. That's all I know.
And you get
Yeah.
to shop at the PX.
And you get, but you know what? We kind of messed her up one time.
Oh.
Because you're not allowed. So we're like, we'll of course pay for it. You're not. You're not even allowed to until you get off property. So she had to use her credit card to pay for all the stuff we bought, and we had to Venmo her later because you couldn't even pull cash out. They won't allow you to do that.
Wow.
So like if I bought $100 pair of shoes, I couldn't even give her money at the PX.
Really?
She was so upset. She was not happy. She's like, what the hell? And she had to pay for it. And she's like, kept the receipt because she's like, Uncle
You
Max
give me
owed her
the-
this and Auntie Sabrina owed her that. And it was like, she was like, this is wrong. And we're like, I didn't know that was the rule.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So now we know going in, we're like, okay, well, as soon as we get off property, we take care and we square up everything so she can pay for it.
John, I got two more questions.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep on the time schedule here. So the first one is, now that we're coming toward the end of the year, what do you think is going to be the sports story of 2024?
That's a good one.
Yeah. Is it the 50-50 Shohei Ohtani thing? Is it going to be
Well, as a Braves fan, I don't think he's gonna make it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
50-50.
My buddy Marissa Gonzalez, if you're listening, grr, she's a big Dodgers fan.
Is it
That's
gonna-
a great story. Hey, I know they lost on Sunday, but if Kansas City wins another Super Bowl, all
think
of a
that's
sudden, you're starting to talk about him in the same category as Andy
Mahomes.
Reid as Belichick and
Yeah.
Mahomes as Brady. Maybe not the exact same just yet, but maybe the second best pair ever once you put them behind Belichick and Brady if they win again.
Yeah.
And I mean, Buffalo played their asses off. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Well, it's in the Bible.
I actually, this whole time, I thought you were gonna swear more.
I was gonna.
You know, like,
You're like, what the hell? You
Yeah.
talk such a
Come
big
on, man,
game,
let's
and
go.
all of a sudden the microphone's on, and you didn't say
you know what?
shit.
It's because there's a camera. If
I
there's
know,
a camera,
like-
yeah.
This is professionalism.
Yeah.
Well, what
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's Kansas City, Shohei. There's Bronny playing with LeBron James.
Yeah, but he's down. He's back down in the D League again. So,
Oh, he
So I
is?
don't want to upset the LeBron fans out there, but they wasted it. That
wasted
kid
a
is
pick.
not a pro basketball player. He is only a pro basketball player because his last name is James.
Yeah.
He's not. I've watched, and look, I'm not a pro basketball player, but I can tell you I've watched him play. He's not a pro. He's never going to be an NBA basketball player. He's not.
Really?
He's just not that. He's not that good. I don't even think he's a very good college basketball. Look at the 1 year he was at USC. Look at his numbers. They're not good.
Yeah.
He's just not a very.
Well, you
Walter
can
Payton
say-
was great, and his kids played football, but
they were okay.
they're okay.
Yeah.
And
So-
Michael Jordan, same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
It's
right,
like
right, right. It doesn't necessarily-
it doesn't necessarily translate.
So the question is, would Bronny not on with his father? Will his father retire?
Oh,
I don't know. The
'Cause
guy.
I thought he was.
the
I thought
guy
he
is
was
still-
hanging on
just
to
for that.
Kind of,
He got it right. That they're in the record book. That's
Yeah.
that's the
And
trivia
they were
question.
to play. I mean, they were to play those few games, but I mean, he's sent down to the D League again. So
But
So-
then like 2 or 3 nights ago, I saw his stat line, and I'm like, geez, this 40-year-old guy still kills it, man. He
can
play.
wants to score 35,
Yeah.
and he wants to grab 14 boards and dish
Yeah.
out 13 assists. It's like, and when you look at him, he still looks. He's just bigger and stronger than everybody else. It's just like, damn,
Yeah.
what was he?
Yeah.
It's like he was chiseled out of marble or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the dude is. It's just remarkable.
Well, even when he was out of high school, he already looked like a 35-year-old guy.
yeah.
He
That's
did,
true.
hairline
but it's
and
funny
everything,
when
yeah.
you see him in that baggy jersey with his whatever when he was in Akron or wherever it was. He does look different now, though. Not a lot,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when you see him now, you're like, damn, like
Yeah.
that's what lifting weights does.
yeah,
Like,
he preserved it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's full circle to Mike Tyson. It's those guys have professional dietitians.
Yeah.
They don't. take anything. You know, what my friend tells me, you need to eat to live, not live to eat. That's what pro athletes do.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And I
they
can't do
literally
that.
think
I
of
like-
it as fuel.
I
Yeah.
like
So when
bacon,
you're
I like bacon way too much.
yeah, when you're looking at
You
that
do.
big
I do.
old bacon and eggs and
Yeah.
everything for breakfast,
Yeah.
and you're
Ice
like
cream.
gravy
Come
all
on.
over,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
no,
It's like
we're
it's
not-
hard to do that. So
not
yeah,
doing that.
that's it's probably why we're not in the NBA. That's
probably-
the only
that's
thing.
the
If we
only-
had
there
just
are
paid
many other
attention
reasons,
to our
but
diet.
That is the reason why I'm
Okay.
not.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last question. We are a music channel, so we ask all of our guests
goodness.
this. If you're stranded on a desert island for the rest of eternity and could only bring 3 albums with you to listen to for the rest of time, what would those 3 albums be?
Okay. I saw the shirt the other day and I thought, okay, that. And in fact, I even watched it on YouTube last night. Prince, Purple Rain.
Okay.
All right.
Every single song
Yeah.
was a #1 hit. Maybe not every single, but I mean,
Maybe not Darling
every
Nikki, but
song
that was a good song.
Yeah.
Every song
Yeah.
made it. Like
Yeah.
as soon as I play even Dirty Nikki or whatever, you're like, you know that song,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if it wasn't #1.
Yeah.
So that I had an 8-track tape. I had the Eagles' greatest hits,
Oh,
Yeah, that
and
was
so
good.
I went to see them at the Blaisdell 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
amazing.
And then they would
That was good timing.
they
Yeah.
would go off stage and leave just like Joe Walsh out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't realize, holy shit, the individual careers
Oh, yeah.
each band member
Yeah.
had. Because they would play a set of 3 or 4 and you're like, it took you back to like 1978, 1983,
Mm-hmm.
and each member, like, okay, Glenn Frey and you knew Don Henley,
Right.
but every member. And
Yeah.
so when you hear that, so anything they play, by the way, you can ask Greg Lau, do not try to karaoke any Eagles songs. It doesn't work. They are such unique voices, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have the album name, but I would take something from Journey.
Okay.
Okay.
And not with
Talking like before Escape, like captured.
not
or-
with
Steve Perry.
No.
Angel
Yeah,
Pineda.
with-
I
yeah,
need
yeah,
Steve Perry.
yeah.
I want Steve
Yeah.
Perry. I want the
Yeah.
original.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I don't even know what album, but just something from them.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I'd have to go old school. Like maybe
By the way-
something like Leonard Skinner, but that's just a
Oh.
tribute to my Alabama
Yeah, I know.
heritage.
Yeah.
As soon as that song plays, because there's a bunch of trivia questions about Sweet Home Alabama. So
Okay.
you know when it starts, and you hear him say "Turn it up."
Yeah.
That's a mistake. He's talking to the sound man.
Yeah.
He wants the reverb or whatever it is. I
Yeah.
don't know my radio that well, but he's trying to hear better. So he's telling the technician, "Turn it up."
Yeah,
and they left it in.
He was talking about his. He's
Yeah.
talking about his headphones. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because he
and
couldn't
so
hear
they
himself.
left it in, and it was this close to being the state song, except for a single line. In
What the-
Birmingham, they loved the governor. Boo, boo,
Oh.
boo. And the governor was George Wallace. And
Right.
he was one of those Southern governors who could only do 2 terms. Then he put his wife in for a term. Then he served 2 more terms.
Oh.
So it's
Interesting.
like it's like
He also was kind of against the whole integration thing.
he
so that
stood in
was-
front of the doors at the University of Alabama in the
Yeah.
60s.
Isn't Sweet
Yeah.
Home Alabama one of the first diss tracks?
I don't know about that.
Would he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Neil Young
Yeah.
in his
Yeah.
song.
They dissed
Yeah.
Neil Young
Yeah.
right on that song.
Southern man,
Yeah.
don't need him around
Yeah.
anyhow. That's
Yeah.
to Neil Young. I heard Mr. Young talk about us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Southern man doesn't need him around. Yeah, because he had Southern
John,
man.
Yeah.
Are you old enough to remember that part of the song? Because you're looking.
No.
So
around.
Neil
I
Young's
know, yeah.
Southern man is basically a diss on Southern people.
Yeah.
And so they also
Ah.
speculate that
And he's
Watergate.
from Canada, by the way, so they
Yeah.
took great offense to that.
And that's another thing in that song too. They talk about Watergate does not bother me. They're basically saying leave us alone. As far as the segregation, that sort of thing, they're kind of it's kind of a exclusionary song where they're wanting, look, let the South be the South. Your stuff doesn't bother us. Why should our stuff bother you? So I like that. But that would be mine. It's kind of weird, but
No.
I like it. It's very eclectic.
yeah, but right.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
how can you not like
There
Sweet
are
Home
no- there
Alabama?
are no wrong-
That
There
is
are
one of
no
those-
wrong answers,
It's
yeah.
one of those
There are no
anthems.
wrong
And
If
answers.
you said the album Baby Shark, you might have.
Yeah, then I'd be like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
If I ever have to listen to what was it between Beethoven and when they were kids and it could repeat and it was always the classical
Oh yeah.
Baby Beethoven or
Yeah.
whatever and you could just re-loop
Yeah.
the disc
Baby
player.
Einstein.
Baby
Baby
Einstein.
Einstein.
Oh,
It was
God, that
just-
drove
I
me
have
nuts.
I have a Sarah Bareilles story that I'll tell on another podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, about repeats.
Okay.
Oh,
Anyway, okay, Jai, thank you so much, sir.
We gotta come back on.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
There's
I
so
can do
much
it.
more we
Oh,
gotta.
I
we
know,
gotta talk
I know.
About.
We
yeah.
didn't
I
even
didn't
discuss
curse
this.
that much.
Yeah.
Well,
What the hell?
The next one, we're getting curse words.
Yeah.
Jai,
That's
trust us.
Part 2 coming.
Okay, and we will see everybody next week. Thank you.
Take care.